How's it going, everyone? Akibana Zero here in the first of what I will hope to be many vlogs that I'm planning on doing to have some more original content here on the channel. I'm hoping to maybe talk a little bit about various things like video games, my life, maybe Rooster Teeth stuff, various stuff that I have on in my head. Whatever that may be the case, whatever strikes my fancy, but generally it's YouTube. And on YouTube, what do? So 2018 is over, and with it, a lot of awesome games and a lot of awesome advances in the gaming industry. A lot of cool titles, cool stuff has happened, lots of great memories that will hopefully remain with us for a long time to come. But along with that, we've also said goodbye to some really, really awful controversies, some pretty awful developments, some terrible practices, lots of things that we would hope that wouldn't kind of bookend our fantastic year like that. But hey, them's the breaks. So what I would like to take an opportunity to talk about as a first vlog for 2019, a brand new year, I want to talk about a few things that I'm hoping to improve in the industry. Maybe some things to completely go away, maybe some things to escalate further, and other things to just overall change in some ways. And the first thing that I would like to see not eradicated but changed more or less, and that would be the games as a service model that the gaming industry is really falling in love with. And it's been happening for quite a while right now. It's just that it's been happening a little bit under the radar, and since last year it's been a little bit more prevalent. It's a little bit more talked about, a little bit more widespread. Lots of companies are starting to express more and more desire for having games as a service because that basically serves their bottom line. At the same time, there are some advantages for us, the players and the customers, but that doesn't necessarily mean that all things are gravy for us. One thing that I'd like to point out over here is that games as a service doesn't necessarily need to be a bad thing. It has several advantages, like, for example, keeping your game up to date all the time. I mean, being able, while keeping it online and keeping it up to date and everything it works out pretty well. That's not a bad thing at all. And also the ability to continuously expand on a game that you really like, that's pretty cool too. It's never bad to get more of a game that you really like. So while games as a service has a lot of advantages, it also has quite a few disadvantages, and it also has the main disadvantage when it comes to that is selling a game to your consumer for $60, but you've sold it to them unfinished with the promise that it was going to be better over time. I'm going to reference a game that's not exactly from last year. It's been around for a few years now, Street Fighter V. This is a game that has this model. It's a service-based game, and it's a clear and very precise example of the kind of trend that I've seen with some of the games as a service out there. Basically, Street Fighter V launched with very minimal content. It launched with basically a 16-character roster, which by some stretches could be considered a small roster, especially considering that for $60 you basically got bare bones stuff. We didn't even get the story mode right off the bat. It was launched way later as a free update. The point is that Street Fighter V launched with a $60 price tag, and it launched in a very bare bones state. And it was not just that it was launched in a bare bones state, it felt like you bought into a beta. And that from everything from the UI to the lack of content to the quality of the online services, all that, it just felt completely beta-ish. And you were like, $60 to buy into this beta was absolutely insane. And I call it a beta because that's exactly how I felt about it. It was a beta. So this is a trend that we have seen with other games. We saw it with No Man's Sky. We're seeing it right now with Fallout 76. And a lot of people might argue that, Fallout has plenty of content and all that, but lots of people have a lot of complaints that there aren't that many different kinds of quests. There are no NPCs. There's not much of a story. You have to find the story, basically, which is kind of a novel thing to do. I mean, it does sound like a cool idea to say, like, oh, you're going out into a wasteland and you're just piecing together what has happened in people's lives over the course of the destruction and all that, but still, that doesn't make for a very engaging game that you're hoping will appeal to a broader audience. or you might have to try and execute it a little bit better. No matter what it is, this is a trend that I want to see ending here in this year of 2019. If you're going to make a games as a service, the initial asking price, if it's $60, make it worth our while. A game, first of all, and first and foremost, has to be very well checked quality-wise. It has to be high quality. Not that many bugs, not that many issues, at least not any glaring issues for that matter. I mean, and I know that this might sound like me taking a dig at Fallout 76, but it actually goes back to many other games that have launched in this kind of state. Destiny 1 had a few of them back when it first launched. Destiny 2 was a little bit better. It still had a few issues here and there. Street Fighter 5 had issues with its netcode. Make sure that even though there's a promise for more content and everything, make sure that it's about content, not about basic bug fixes. That doesn't make any sense at all, right? Second thing, when it comes to fitting the $60 mold, of course, is content. You can't launch a game without any sufficient content to match that $60 price tag. Sure, you're expecting us to play this game for a while, maybe 1, 2, 3 years down the line, but we're hoping that happens because of content that you're launching over this period of time. Not because you are slowly fixing the game that you were supposed to give us from the get-go. So, what is an example of a lack of content? Street Fighter 5 didn't have an arcade mode in it, and it didn't launch with its story mode, and it had a very, very bad survival mode, which I to this day I still do not want to touch it, even though they've supposedly made some improvements to it. Another example, No Man's Sky. I never played that game even though I really wanted to, but when it launched and I saw the reviews and I saw how furious people were, I was like, what happened, guys? Like that game basically did not meet the vision that they had established for it, the vision that they had set out for that game, which is really awful. And that is actually where I want to come to this final point of what I mean by fitting a $60 mold, is that the game needs to fundamentally fit that vision that you've established with your marketing. If you're not going to fit that vision from the get-go, from the $60 price tag that you've put on that base game, regardless of what you're doing down the line, it has to fit that vision. If you're telling me that I'm going to go out there and pick up eggs from hen houses and go back and fry eggs, I expect to be doing that. Another thing that I would like to see, basically, I don't want to completely say like eradicate it or whatever, but I do feel that this kind of thing I'm going to address right now needs to be nipped in the bud, which it already has been, and there's already change, but I'm hoping that it escalates further, and that is predatory practices like loot boxes and shady microtransactions. These are the kinds of things that I do not want to see much of in 2019, and the reason is because primarily, I don't think that loot boxes add any value to the customer. Sure, it gets us to continuously click for more and more and more to keep opening those packs. I did that a lot with Hearthstone, and I'm very happy that I stopped doing that because I no longer feel that sinking feeling of having put I don't know how many dollars into the game and not getting as many legendary cards or whatever. I'm also saying this as a parent, as a person who one day will be potentially buying his kid a Star Wars game. And what is going to happen is that next Star Wars game going to have loot boxes in there for my kid to click away and get addicted to gambling or whatever, or even if that is not even the case, okay? I don't think that a child should be learning that gaming is about putting as much money as you possibly can. No, the way I grew up with gaming, and I'm going to sound like an old man right now, but that is the truth, okay? When I was growing up and I was playing games, gaming was about putting the effort in, was about learning, it was about growing, and it was about improving. That's what it was about to me, and that's how I feel that it should be. Because games are essentially learning platforms. Because regardless of what it is you're doing, you're playing against an NPC, you're fighting a boss, you're solving a puzzle, you are fighting a human opponent online. You're learning and you're improving, and that is what the essence of gaming is. in my opinion, and I feel for a lot of people as well. So adding all of these predatory practices where you can buy power, you can buy armor, buy weapons, buy red dots or whatever the hell you buy, doesn't really add anything to the customer, to the player per se. And that is a very big thing that I feel needs to be addressed in 2019 when it comes to microtransactions. Microtransact, that's not even a word, all the heck you want. But make sure that it's something that adds value to me in a way that does not disrupt the game. So basically take away all the gameplay elements from the microtransactions, keep it cosmetic, any way you want, that is fine. I do believe that money needs to be made, and I understand that the gaming industry is a business and they need to make money in order to make more games and to keep incentivizing themselves to make games, obviously. But fundamentally speaking, there needs to be a balance, and that balance needs to be achieved. One more point I want to make, something that kind of ties into the whole loot boxes thing, and this is what I would like to see disappear. And this is a trend that has been going on for several years now, but I've gotten really sick of it, and I'd like for it to actually either slow down, change, or stop. I don't know, whatever. And that is adding grinds to games that do not fit the grind mold. When I'm talking about a grind, I mean in the same sense where you've got like this bar that you're constantly playing or doing something specific in the game, and you're constantly filling that bar, which then gets you more currency so you can buy more loot boxes or whatever. These things are okay in games that have RPG elements, that are essentially made to be RPGs, and doesn't fit when you're adding it into a game like NBA, or if you're adding it into a football game or into a shooter like Call of Duty, or even a fighting game. If you're adding a grind, you're adding it artificially, and that just basically you're creating a whole other metagame for a game that doesn't fit that type of metagame, the grind metagame. This kind of thing needs to go away or needs to be changed. Find another way to get players to earn currency or whatever, to get to get cosmetics or to get items or whatever. But if the game is not an RPG, why are you adding RPG elements to it? So one thing I would like to see in 2019 really go the distance is cross-platform play. Cross-platform play between all consoles, all devices, anything. Like any game that comes out, unless it's an exclusive, if it has multiplayer, make it available in multiple devices, then make sure that all these devices can play with each other. And there's so many niche genres of the gaming industry that could actually benefit from this. Particularly, my stake in this is actually fighting games. There are so many amazing fighting games right now out there on the market that have really small communities, and people are not buying into them because there's not a big player pool to play with online. And the reason for that is that one person buys it on the Switch, the other person buys it on a PlayStation 4, the other person buys it on Xbox One. These people never meet. And it's even worse when it comes to Europe or other countries where fighting games are not as prevalent. Cross-platform play saw quite a bit of traction in 2018 with Microsoft and with Nintendo leading the charge, with Minecraft being available on so many platforms and allowing cross-platform play was absolute genius. And the fact that Sony completely set themselves apart on that was a really shady move on their part, despite how much I do like the PlayStation brand and everything. I thought that was probably one of the shadiest things ever. Understandably so, they are the top platform right now in the console market, but even still, cross-platform play can only be a good thing for everybody, because it essentially means you're not making the wrong purchase. Bought a PlayStation 4, you bought it because it had the exclusives it had the features you wanted, you prefer the PlayStation brand, whatever. You didn't buy an Xbox because you wanted to play a specific game that was available on PlayStation as well, but you couldn't play with your friends, or you couldn't play with other people, or the player base was small. I can think of other games that could benefit from this kind of thing. Titanfall 2. Titanfall 2 is an shooter. It's great, but the problem is that the player base is very small. Could you imagine Xbox One, PS4, and PC all being able to play together? That would be great. Okay, the mouse and keyboard thing might be a bit of an issue. Maybe the PC can be excluded. Maybe some other systems can be put in place where players can opt out of games against mouse and keyboard players. Whatever be the case, cross-platform play introduces other problems into the mix, but these problems can be solved over time. The beginning needs to happen, though, because with cross-platform play, it benefits the player greatly. It benefits us, and I do believe it benefits publishers and developers as well, because that means that their games become more widespread. Recently, I heard that the developers behind the free-to-play Monster Hunter-esque game Dauntless are actually planning a multi-platform launch with multi-platform play, cross-platform play, all of that jazz, which I found absolutely fantastic, because it means that you're going to be able to play your game. If you play Dauntless, you will be able to play on any platform you want. For example, if me and my wife wanted to play, for instance, we don't need to buy another device. I can play on my Switch if it's coming out on Switch, and she can play on the PS4 or on the PC, and it's all gravy, right? Cross-platform play, hype train, please. Doot doot. So this last point, even though it's not exactly about the games themselves, but more about the companies and the people that run them and the decisions that they make and the marketing that they execute, I still feel that this is something that publishers especially need to really introspect on this, because I can't stand being in an industry which is supposedly established by gamers, and they're completely out of touch with this. And I'm talking about generally companies being completely out of touch with their player base. And the biggest example of this all was the BlizzCon announcement of Diablo Immortal. How ridiculous was that? How ridiculous was that? Their big announcement there and then was a mobile Diablo. And I want to stress for a moment here that there is nothing wrong with having a mobile Diablo. There's nothing wrong with mobile gaming whatsoever. But that's not the point. You're at BlizzCon with Blizzard fans. What are Blizzard fans? They're PC gamers. Some of them even console gamers. Some of them may be playing Diablo on their console. Whatever be the case, they're not looking for a mobile spin-off. They're not looking for Command & Conquer Rivals. They are looking for a Diablo 4. They're looking for the next big announcement. You can't turn around and say to them that this is the announcement we have, and oh my god, don't you guys have phones? That is just ridiculous. That was pure insanity, in my opinion. And I felt really bad for the people who had to make that announcement as well. But even still, how out of touch do you have to be to get to that point at your big conference and completely ignore what your player base is all about, what they're expecting, okay? And I'm not trying to be high and mighty over here. I'm not trying to accuse Blizzard of trying to make money or trying to capitalize on something, which they should. They're a company and they should be capitalizing on certain things. I don't know what is going on in these executives' heads. I don't know what it is people are thinking, but if you want to succeed in any industry, you need to understand your market. You need to understand who the people behind that market are. And we gamers, we're not here to just play a silly game where we're tapping away on our phones, which again, I want to point out there's nothing wrong with that. But being a gamer, a person who has played games from years ago on older consoles, older devices, you kind of know the history of the games, you've been around the block here and there. You're not looking for that kind of experience. You are looking for the next big thing, the next big title, the next big innovation. That's what you're looking for. And that's all you need to provide. And even if it's not some big innovation, as long as it's a game that we like, that makes us feel that it's fun, it has a good story, or it has good gameplay, that is enough for us. That is basically enough for us. We don't need somebody to make for us a game that we can carry with us in our pockets necessarily. We just want a game that we're going to purely enjoy and we're going to remember for the rest of our lives. That's what we're looking for. Get your heads out of your butts, guys. Get them out of there. You want to do mobile? Perfect. That's fine. You know how mobile is going to work? Take a page from Bethesda from when they announced Fallout 4 and they had Fallout Shelter. Fallout Shelter was a genius idea in my opinion to tide people over until Fallout 4 came out, a free-to-play game to keep them engaged on the brand. It didn't, if I remember correctly, it didn't really have any effect on the game itself, but that's not the point. It keeps people engaged, and it was a fun game. I enjoyed playing Fallout Shelter quite a bit, actually. And I have it on my Switch, and I play it a little bit there as well. It's a nice little game, and it keeps me engaged in the Fallout universe, and that's all you need to make. Companion apps, companion games, maybe they affect the main game themselves. Maybe Diablo Immortal? Maybe Diablo Immortal could have been this companion game for Diablo 4 or Diablo 3, where maybe some items you get in the mobile game, you could transfer them to your main game. You got this killer, amazing, legendary, move it to the main game. That could have been it. So these are the things that I would like to see in 2019 happen in the gaming industry. How do you guys feel about these, and what are your thoughts? What is it that you want to see happening in the gaming industry in 2019? You can sound off in the comments section below. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more vlogs from me, please hit that like button right over there because it helps a lot. And of course, you can subscribe by mashing on the subscribe button. And if you want to support the channel even further, you can head over to patreon.com/Akibana0 and support me over there. For the time being, I'm giving early access to Rooster Teeth reactions, but there's going to be more rewards in the future, so stay tuned. And that's going to do it for this video, guys. I'm going to catch you next time.